All right, Tokyo. You wanted the best, you got us.
Rip and destroy!
Welcome to episode 13 of Rip and Destroy. I am TJ, and I am coming to you all the way from Tokyo, Japan. I'm in the Ueno area. With me, as always, unfortunately not physically, but over the interwebs, is Mike over there in Oregon,
Hey
USA.
everybody, I'm still holding it down
Yeah,
in the Pacific Northwest, but that looks
yeah,
beautiful over your shoulder.
somebody's got to keep order over there. So yeah, this is going to be a little shorter episode of the show, I think, just because I'm doing this on my cell phone from my hotel room. But we're going to talk a little bit about thematically, a little bit about history in Japan. I've got a few little facts and figures for you. I've seen a few Kiss things while I was over here, so I think we're probably just going to get into it. I don't have any housekeeping or upfronts or anything like that. How about you?
Let's just jump in, but before we get to the Kiss things you've seen over there, it's hilarious that just about every picture you text me has Godzilla in it somewhere. They've really leaned into that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of Godzilla stuff, a lot of video game stuff. Obviously, those are my two of my big passions. But I haven't just been doing that. I've been seeing all kinds of awesome, just amazing culture and shrines and temples. And I walked out to the Imperial Palace yesterday. I've been checking all kinds of stuff off my list, but I'm also taking my time. It's been amazing. It's been a dream come true. So, but with that, let's jump into a little bit of Japanese KISStory. So, first and foremost, I got to give credit where it's due. I learned almost all of my Japanese KISStory from Alan Belish's book, An Illustrated Guide to Kiss in Japan. Incredible book that unfortunately is not in print currently. He's already sold out of like three or four printings. So hopefully he brings it back someday. But so shout out for Alan, very educational. So as you can probably imagine, if you know anything about Kiss, Kiss's story in Japan starts with Hotter Than Hell and its cover art, which was conceived by the photographer Norman Seeff and the designer John Van Hamersveld. And it was directly inspired by the work of a Japanese graphic designer named Tadanori Yoko. And I'll send you some images. We'll post some images of his work here while I'm talking, and you will see how much the cover of Hotter Than Hell actually looks like Yoko's work. It's very, very similar. It's very, very heavily influenced by it. But anyways, they added all that Japanese lettering. They got Ace Frehley's name wrong. The way it reads is actually closer to Ace Fury, and it took them a little while to come around to spelling it Ace Frehley in Japanese for a while. But the biggest thing they did was they tried to translate the title Hotter Than Hell, but that didn't really translate in Japan. So what they ended up doing, the part on the cover of Hotter Than Hell that you think says Hotter Than Hell actually says Screams from Hell. So that's actually the Japanese title of the record. But anyways, once the Japanese music scene kind of picked up on the existence of this Kiss record, Victor Records here in Japan got interested in licensing and releasing Kiss albums in Japan, and they made a deal with Neil Bogart, who was already at that point, financially struggling. We know that, and so for Victor, it wasn't a whole lot of money, this deal, but for Neil, it actually kept Casablanca, afloat for just a little while longer. So they started with releasing the current album at the time, which was Dress to Kill. And then they released Alive and then Destroyer. And then they went back and they released Kiss and Hotter Than Hell. So that was actually the release order in Japan. But the most interesting thing was that they picked up on all of that Japanese lettering and design that was on the cover of Hotter Than Hell. And the way in English, Kiss's nickname is, the hottest band in the land.
Right.
Here in Japan, Kiss's nickname is Jigoku no Gondan, or the Gang from Hell, which is
Hmm.
way cooler. so, so they actually took that and they ran with it, and all of the albums in Japan actually have a unique title in Japan that is not the same. And I have a short list of some of them here. So, Dress to Kill, the first album that was released here in Japan, is called Jigoku e nu Seppun, which means a kiss blown to hell. Alive is called Jigoku no Kyoju, the crazy beast from hell. You see where this is going?
I do. Yeah. It's going to
Going
hell.
straight to hell. Well, it's not going straight to hell, but it's coming from hell. Okay. Destroyer was called Jigoku no Gundam, which is the gang from hell, which that almost makes it like a self-titled record. Then when they went back and released the first two albums, Kiss self-titled debut was Jigoku Kara no Shisha, or Messenger from Hell. And then Hotter Than Hell, of course, they went with what was already on the cover, Screams from Hell. So at that point, they got caught up. They all the Kiss albums were finally released in Japan, and then they continued the From Hell series. Rock and Roll Over was called. This is my favorite one. It's Jigoku no Rock Fire, which is Rock Fire from Hell, which is it's such a cool name.
Yeah, it
And
is.
actually, I don't really have a list of the rest of them on me, but they continued that all the way through Lick It Up, I think. So that's just another interesting, piece of Japanese Kiss trivia that's worth knowing. And anyways, at that point, Kiss's Japanese fan base continued to build, and demand for them to visit Japan kept growing until finally, as we all know, in March of 1977, they brought the Rock and Roll Over tour, or should I say the Rock Fire from Hell tour, to the Budokan in Tokyo for 4 sold-out shows, and then they're off to the races.
All right, Tokyo, you wanted the best, you got the best, the gang from hell.
Yeah.
How cool is
So,
that? So as much as I want to hear about the food you're eating over there, I got to ask about the
yeah.
record stores. Have you been to record stores? And if you have you seen cool Kiss stuff there?
Yeah, I've seen a couple, and it's been kind of varied as far as what I've found. So a couple of nights ago, I was in Akihabara, which is like the nerd district, where like there's a lot of video games and anime stuff, and I found a little used record store there, and they had a nice little selection of Kiss records, maybe 10 or 12. Crazy enough, they were all Japanese pressings. I mean, imagine that, which is really funny because anywhere else in the world, Japanese pressings are pretty highly desired, and they're
Right.
collectible and a variant that collectors like to pick up. And here I am, and the record stores are full of nothing but. So
Well,
it's kind of cool.
I know you collect the singles. Have you picked up any of the Japanese singles? Because it's always crazy
No,
to me how the Japanese singles were always kind of one step off, even though they were official. Like Lick It Up and
yeah,
Not for the Innocent had the creatures makeup on the cover, and like The
hmm
Tears Are Falling and Any Way You Slice It had the animalized cover.
yeah. I've seen a couple of the Kiss singles. One of them I saw was I think it's the UK pressing of Paul, the Hold Me Touch Me from Paul's solo album. It's got the purple vinyl and the mask. I did see one of those. The only Japanese single I've seen so far was Hard Luck Woman. And like you said, it's got an unusual cover because it's got a photo from the Hotter Than Hell tour on it, where Ace has the pizza box.
Yeah.
But it's an odd. We'll post a picture of it here if you haven't seen it. And it's a real weird photo because it's how photographers shoot off like tons and tons of photos, and they throw keep the good ones and throw out the bad ones. This is totally like a throwaway photo because if you look, like Gene isn't facing the camera, Paul's making a weird face, and his guitar is like blocking half of Ace's face. So it's totally, I don't know if that's just the only photo they had at the time. I don't know if that's all they had access to, but it's not a great photo, but it makes a unique cover.
I thought you were gonna say it has a photo of Rod Stewart on the cover.
That would have been funnier, yeah.
So
um
besides singles, what else have you seen?
so the place that I saw in Akihabara, like I said, it had a bunch of 12-inch vinyl, obviously a lot of LPs. Nothing super unusual though. So then yesterday I was in Shibuya, and first off, I don't know if you're aware, Tower Records is still a thing here. So
Really?
I was at Tower. So I was at Tower Records in Shibuya, and I went up to the sixth floor, which is all their vinyl, and they had possibly
Wait.
the most
Sixth floor. Sixth.
out of seven.
Unbelievable. Now I gotta
Yeah.
go.
So yeah, I was in the sixth floor, which is the vinyl floor, and they had possibly the most pathetic Kiss section in any record store I've ever seen. All they had was the Paul Stanley solo picture disc and the Peter Criss solo picture disc.
And those are that's weak. That it could have been
That
worse.
was not good. Yeah, that
It
was
could have
not
been
good.
worse.
They did, however, have their CD section was good for Kiss, though. They had a lot of the releases for the Kiss albums on CD. They also had quite a few bootleg CDs, which I found really interesting. They had a bunch of the kind of unofficial CDs, probably about maybe 8, 10 or so of those. And we can post a video of that while I'm talking too. I took a little video of me flipping through those. But despite that pathetic Kiss section, Toe Records actually had an Ace Frehley section in their vinyl bins. And they had 3 of them. They had, I think, Space Invader, Spaceman, and the reissue of Anomaly with a different cover. So I found that interesting that the Ace Frehley section was actually better than the Kiss section at Tower. So that was interesting. And then I went to another one of the major record store chains here in Japan, which is called Disc Union. Also in Shibuya. They have multiple locations throughout Tokyo, but I was at the Shibuya branch, which they also have some of their shops are categorized. So I went to the rock shop
Okay.
in Shibuya, which was cool. I'll post a shot of the entrance. You have to go down some stairs, but the whole stairwell is plastered in album covers, and you can see if you can spot the Kiss one because it's there. But they were a gorgeous record store, and they had an awesome selection of Kiss stuff. They had some really interesting items, including I think it was a US pressing of the debut album, the one with the hype sticker on the cover that mentions Kissin' Time. So it was like the first release that had Kissin' Time, like with the hype sticker. And I think they wanted like $400 for that one. But what was cool about that was that actually, as you're flipping through the bins, that actually had it was in like a hard plastic sleeve with
Mhm.
a a print of the cover on it so that you weren't actually even handling the record. It was like protected inside. It was so they take such good care of their used stuff over here. So then, in addition to that copy of the debut record, they had the 10th anniversary bootleg of the Creatures tour. The
Oh,
original
really?
one with with the black and white and red cover.
Oh,
I
nice.
personally have a reissue with the blue cover, but this one's the original bootleg of that. They also had the 12-inch of Hide Your Heart, which I mean, it's not something that I want, but I haven't seen one before.
Mhm.
And they did, in fact, have in the Kiss section a copy of the debut Vinnie Vincent Invasion record, which I almost bought you, but
Wait. Was Hide Your Heart in the Kiss section or the A section?
yes, no, it was in the Kiss section. But so far, that's about it. One of the things I wanted to do was go over to the Budokan and just get a photo of it, but I haven't had a chance to do that. Unfortunately, it's right by the Imperial Palace, which I was at yesterday, and I completely forgot
Mm,
about Budokan. So I missed my opportunity for that. But Disc Union also had a set of American Psycho Circus action figures.
right on.
So still in the packages, but that was about it. So would have loved to see a little more Kiss stuff over here, but that's what I got.
I'm surprised you didn't run into the Momohiro Clover Z singles.
Me too. I was keeping an eye out for that in the CD sections, and I did not see any of those. They might have been limited. I don't know. All the stuff on the in the CD racks was regular catalog stuff. So yeah, I haven't run across one of those yet. I don't have that. So if I do find any of those, I'll probably pick one up. But no luck so far.
I don't know when that one's going to come up again. So what are your thoughts on that song, the video, the whole project?
It was okay. There was the Memorial song with Kiss guesting on it, and they also did a very cute version of Rock and Roll All Night, which was entertaining. And then Kiss did that song Samurai Sun, which I thought was fair to middling. It was
Mhm.
nothing special. I was actually kind of surprised that they collaborated with that particular band because I had never heard of them, but that means nothing because I don't pay attention to J-pop. So I don't know how huge
Right,
they were over here, but
right.
I hadn't heard of them in any other context other than their collab with Kiss. So.
Yeah, between the two, I think the collaboration with Judas Priest and Baby Metal might have been a little bit better. There's things I really liked about it. I thought the video was super badass. The animation in the
Mhm.
video was really incredible. This song didn't really move me, and the only thing that really bothered me about it was actually the last official thing to come out when the band was still together.
That's a good
So
point.
it's
Yeah, that's interesting.
not a great way to put a period on a really long, amazing sentence, but there it is.
Well, yeah, interesting nonetheless.
What about Yoshiki stuff? Did you see Yoshiki stuff at the? I'm sure you did at the record stores.
I didn't even look. I didn't even look for any ex Japan stuff. No.
Speaking of Kiss in Japan, a couple other projects I wanted to touch on, of course, a lot of collaborations with Yoshiki. My first exposure to X and Yoshiki, great documentary about them too, by the way, was Kiss My Ass when Yoshiki did the Black Diamond cover. But then in 2016, when Kiss went over for New Year's Eve and they did a TV special together, but I think the coolest thing I saw was in 2019 when the tour came to Tokyo. I think that Yoshiki actually did all the Japanese states and he did the encores with them. So he came out and played piano during Beth, and I'm assuming he actually really played the piano on Beth, unlike the show I saw.
One would hope, yeah.
Yeah. And then he played drums on Rock and Roll All Night, which was super badass. And for somebody like me who's a drummer, to see somebody else sitting in, on that stage playing that song with all the, with all the chaos going on around him. That's a dream come true. I'm sure it was for him too, even though he's one of the biggest musicians on the planet. So,
Yeah, and I can only guess that he's about the only person they would let do that too.
right, right. So another project I wanted to touch on, and I don't know if this is something that you would find in a record store or if you'd find in a collector's shop or an art museum, is are the wood blocks that came out a couple years ago with
Yeah, the
ukiyo-e.
ukiyo-e. Hmm.
Yes, yes, and they're amazing to look at. They're absolutely beautiful. So, have you run into any?
No, I actually completely forgot about that, and that's not something that I don't know where those I don't know how those were released either. If those were like limited edition prints or if that was just original art pieces. Yeah, I have no idea, but trust me, if I find them, I'll let you know.
One thing we should definitely throw up on YouTube on the playlist is there's a great documentary. It's really short, but you can actually see them making them, and the process they go through to bring those to life is really very intentional and beautiful and pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So what's next on the trip?
Today I'm meeting up with my buddy down in Yokohama. We're gonna eat some sushi. I don't know. I've probably gonna take it a little easier for the next couple of days because I've been going hard. I've been checking a lot of things off my list and running around and taking trains and eating and drinking and um I'm gonna slow down maybe for a couple of days and then yeah, I've got a few more days here and then I come all the way back to the other side of the world, back to my wife and my dogs and rip and destroy episode 14, I guess.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for the history lesson and thanks for sharing Tokyo with us. This is incredible.
Absolutely, man. This is a dream come true for me too, and I'm glad we could I'm glad we could take a minute to record an episode for everybody.
Well, we'd love it if you guys would join the conversation. Rip and Destroy Podcast is where you find us. That's at Gmail, Rip and Destroy Podcast at gmail.com, or Spotify, or Instagram, or YouTube, or pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. So drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we'll see you.
Kill the Paul, Phil. Kill the Paul.